Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Brian Hite, modern day Renaissance man, a sport and performance psychologist, thought leader, university faculty member, and stuntman with over 100 film and TV credits, including a prestigious Screen Actors Guild Award for 24. He is also an author and a podcast host. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Brian. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about unlocking peak performance. We learned that from you. But before that, let's understand a bit more about you, your background, your journey, so that people know who they are listening to and learn from your journey itself.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's funny that you all are coming from India. It was about a month ago that I was approached about maybe coordinating and second unit directing, stunt coordinating and second unit directing a TV project out there. And it ended up not working out, but I was very excited about being able to come out to India. I've never been there, maybe one day. But I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee in the United States. I went to college after high school, as many people do, but I didn't graduate. I dropped out to become a stuntman. I wasn't something I ever planned to do as a kid, but I came across it and I said, yeah, that's what I want. It had nothing to do with a college degree. And so I left and I went to Los Angeles and I started working in live shows and eventually television and film, and just had a blast doing it. I got to meet some really fun people and do some really cool stuff and just enjoyed it. But what was missing for me was the learning. I did miss learning. And that took me back to school to finish my bachelor's degree and then to continue on with a master's degree in sports psychology and a PhD in organizational psychology, but never with the intention of actually working in either of those fields. I was very happy doing stunts and being a stuntman. And I just thought that would be what I would do until I retired. Well, life does what it does and things turned around and I ended up getting married and I started working for the U.S. Army as a sport performance psychologist for soldiers. So we were focused on how can soldiers get their minds and well, really their whole selves into a place where they can perform to their potential, to perform at their best, no matter what they're doing. So whether they're at the range or whether they're doing medical tasks or clearing buildings or doing artillery round shooting, firing, whatever they were doing, we were there to help them make sure that their minds were where they needed to be. And I did that job for 2 years and it was a great job, but life took another twist and I ended up back in Los Angeles doing stunts again for another 4 or 5 years. And then life took another twist and I found myself back with the Army again, but this time at an Army post outside of Nashville, where I'm from. So I did that job for about 9 years. And at that point, the job shifted from just sport and performance psychology work to resilience training as well. And I really liked that. I gravitated toward the resilience work because it's different in the sense that it's not just focused on one performance per se. It really is about providing people with tools and resources that they can use regardless of what's going on. Life kicks us in the teeth and there's nothing we can do about it. Things go wrong. That's inevitable. So how do we handle those things when they do go wrong? And that's really what the resilience training was about. And I loved it. And, and I did it for close to a decade and that was enough. So I quit that job. I opened my own business, first Begin Again Performance Psychology, now Brian Hite Global. I went back to stunts again for a third time for those keeping count. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm working as a stuntman. I have my business doing, keynote speaking, sport performance psychology work. As you mentioned, I have a book that I've written. I'm about halfway through another one called Stuntman's Guide to Motivation. I'm hoping that one will be out probably middle of next year. We'll see. And that's it. That's what I do. That's my life. I'm also a dad. I have a daughter. She's 11. I have 2 stepsons. They're 9 and 12. And life is just busy, but a great time.
Life is busy, but a great time. Are you the say most educated stuntman in the US, or are there more?
There I'm close. I'm in the top 5. There are a couple of other ones that have advanced degrees, but not a whole lot.
Why stuntman? Does it give a lot of money, or is it because in India, I would say a lot of the old stories that if you do not have a job or you do not have, then you take up this risk. There is a lot of risk in being a stuntman. That's what my person. I could be wrong. I'm not a part of Bollywood or any of these things, but that is my impression reading about things and all. But how is it in the US, and why do you have to take risk at least at this stage in life when you are a PhD psychologist and so many things, or just and you are a modern day Renaissance man? What does that mean?
Well, to get back to the stuntman thing, it's I don't think about it as have to. I think about it as get to. And that's kind of a philosophy that I take through all aspects of my life. I try to avoid the have to and really lean on the get to. I get to be a stuntman. I get to hang out with these incredibly talented people creating incredibly amazing projects with creativity that's unmatched. It really is. So it's just a lot of fun. Every project I do is just so much fun. In fact, I'm flying out in a couple of days to go work on a TV show called The Righteous Gemstones. I believe it's on HBO or Max or something. That's a comedy show, and the writers they're just geniuses. And the sequence, I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing, but this lady, again, it's a comedy. This lady, they come to find out that she kills a lot of husbands that she has, and that they find that out. And so it's a montage sequence of just husbands getting killed in some crazy fun way. And so I'm going to be one of those. So yeah, I have no idea what I'm walking into, but it's going to be fun. I like the stunt coordinator. I like the cast. It's going to be a great time. So that's
Lots
why
of
I continue to do stunts.
right, Brian. Lots of husbands getting killed, and you have no idea what you are walking into. You are walking into a lot of danger. I'm just joking. I want to understand: is being a stuntman a dangerous job in the U.S.? And you train a lot of peak performers. How do you prepare for such danger, if at all there are dangers in the job that you take?
Yeah, there certainly are dangers. I mean, otherwise there wouldn't be a need for stunt people. There are things that are risky and that do require special skills. So that's where that comes in. Obviously, we try to make those things as safe as they possibly can be, but at the end of the day, there's risk and there's the possibility of injury. So we try to reduce that, but it never is eliminated. And then as far as what was your other question about training? Oh, the training to do it. Yeah. So a lot of the stuff, it's really interesting because for a lot of my life, the stunt part has seemed very separate from the psychology and academic part. And here lately, over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been able to really meld those two, to really bring them together in a meaningful way. In other words, I've been able to really package what it is that I've learned academically and applied in the stunt world in a way that can be beneficial for business people, for entrepreneurs, for athletes, for other performers, whomever. Because, when we perform, we all have to do the same things. There's a before, there's a right before, there's a during, and there's an after for every performance. And this is something that some colleagues and I, when we were working with the military, we wrote up and we published in a journal called the Journal of Applied Sports Psychology. But it's something I call the 4-phase approach to performance. And it's one of the things I coach people around. And probably in several months, it'll be something that I'll have a class developed for as well that people can purchase. But it's just an approach to performance that helps us focus on the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the social aspects of who we are in each of those phases of performance. For example, every performance has a before. We have to set our goals. We have to understand what our objective is, what we're trying to achieve, and what it's going to take to prepare to do that. So how do we prepare? Well, that's where we break it down into physical, mental, emotional, and social. Physically, what do I need to do? I need to eat right. I need to sleep well. I need to make sure that I exercise and stretch. Mentally, what do I need to do? I need to rehearse in my mind what's going to happen. I can see it using mental imagery. I can set those goals. Emotionally, what do I need to do? I can identify those emotions that will be helpful for me in the moment, whether it's an excitement or a calmness. I can identify that emotional state and then create ways to be able to make sure that that emotional state is sustained. And then socially, who are my friends? Who am I leaning on for support? What about my team? Are we all on the same page? Are we communicating well? So I can take all of these different factors into consideration in the before, the right before, the during, and the after to help set conditions for that performance to go as well as possible. We can't guarantee that everything's going to go perfectly, but we certainly can minimize the number of problems that we're likely to face.
Right, right. Well explained, Brian. Now, let's talk about peak performance. Uh, Peak performance. People want peak performance from peak performers. What do peak performers want from themselves? Is it just peak performance, or is it something more or beyond that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because one of the things that I always start with when I work with a new client is we define success. So you've used the term peak performance. To me, I think that you can easily substitute that phrase for success. So what is success to you? How do you define that? And many of the clients that I come across, particularly the athletes, their definition of success might be winning a tournament or placing at a competition or something of that nature. And so I question them and I say, well, is that all success is for you? Are there other ways to define success? And that's when we break things down into that physical, mental, emotional, and social aspects of people. Because although the ultimate goal might be to win a tournament, there are things that we need to do along the way in order to make that happen. So soccer or football, depending on what part of the world you're living in, is a great example of this. So for example, somebody might have the goal of we want to win the game. Well, terrific. But how do you do that? Well, we score more goals than the other team. Great. How do we do that? Well, we have to be able to dribble well and pass well and be aggressive on defense and pick ourselves up after mistakes and carry on. All right, well, great. Those are the things that we can focus on then. Those are the things that in this moment are necessary for our goal to be achieved. In other words, if we put our attention only on the end state, I want to win or I want to score a goal, we'll get nowhere. We have to put our attention instead on those things that are necessary in order for our goal to be achieved. And if we put our attention on those things, the end state will normally just take care of itself.
Right, right, Brian. Now, when we talk of performance, we also talk about pressure. So, what makes a peak performer a peak performer? Is it because how they are able to handle pressure, or is it because they have more resilience than others? Later on, you are talking about resilience also nowadays. So, I want to understand, is handling pressure about resilience, or is it a separate thing than resilience? These are two tools that you are able to carry on. Help us understand. You know about the mindset. I only know about a bit of words here and there.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, I would say that resilience and pressure or handling pressure are two completely different things, but are linked in some important ways. So what I mean by that is resilience is about not only bouncing back from adversity, but actually thriving and flourishing and becoming better for having gone through something challenging in the first place. And we're much more likely to be able to do that the more resources we have. And there are many resources. I've mentioned 4 already: physical, mental, emotional, and social. We also might have financial resources, etc. So that's resilience. The more resources we have available, the more likely we will be to be able to come back from adversity when it occurs. But pressure is completely self-imposed. And this is another thing that I speak on. I do keynote speaking, and this is a topic that I talk about, and it's a program that I offer from a coaching standpoint, and it will be another one of those classes that I offer as well. But I believe that pressure is something that doesn't just exist. People will talk about pressure situations, high pressure situations. This situation has a lot of pressure involved. It's not the situation. It is entirely how we look at the situation. If we view the situation as a threat, meaning something bad might happen, if that's how we're looking at it, then of course we're going to feel pressure. But if we look at the situation as an opportunity, meaning what good could come out of this? What are the benefits of being involved in this and taking part in this activity? Well, now we're excited. Now there's joy. There's no pressure involved in that. And all that happened is we changed what we focused on. And here's the other thing, to take it even a little bit further, is both threat and opportunity exist in the future. They're all about things that might occur in the future. So if our focus is on the future, we're better off thinking about the benefits, the opportunities, rather than the threats. But probably even better than that is to keep our focus on the present moment, to stay engaged in this moment right now. Put our attention on those things, like I mentioned earlier, that in this moment are necessary in order for us to move forward. This is why mindful meditation is one of the things that I absolutely 100% recommend to every client that I have, because that ability to be aware of the thoughts that are passing through our mind, not to block them, but just be aware of them, and aware of our bodies and aware of our drives in this moment right now, that allows us to be able to move ourselves in the direction we want to go without pressure even being a part of it.
Right, right. Pressure, resilience. Now let's get motivation into the equation. What role have motivation into these things? Is it a lot of people are very motivated? A lot of people are motivated only for one thing or the other. How should we look at motivation? One is purely, say, for money, but one is purely in terms of high performance, peak performance. How should we look at motivation? What is the importance of motivation into peak performance?
Well, to start with that last one, motivation is critical for peak performance, to be able to perform at a high level in the moment and to be able to sustain high levels of motivation over the course of time. Motivation is essential. And when we talk about motivation, most people are talking about levels of motivation, meaning for this given activity, am I really motivated to do it, or am I not motivated at all to do it? And that's fine. The levels of motivation is important to understand. But as you referenced, the sources of motivation are also very important to understand. So just very quickly, levels of motivation, there are three things that tend to affect our levels of motivation, whether we're really motivated or not motivated. One is the extent to which we believe we're capable of doing the activity successfully. If we think we can do it well, we're likely to be motivated. If not, we're not going to be motivated. The second is the extent to which we care about the activity, the extent to which it matters to us. If it matters to us, we'll be motivated. If it doesn't matter to us, we're not going to be motivated. And the third is the extent to which the benefits associated with engaging in the activity outweigh the costs of engaging in the activity. And the thing to remember about all three of those is that there's no objective way to look at any of those three. It is all about how we view it. If we think we are capable of being successful, if we think the thing is important, if we believe that the benefits outweigh the cost, then we'll be motivated. It doesn't matter at all what your boss or your coach or your parent or whoever else, it doesn't matter what they think. It only matters what we believe. So that's levels of motivation. But digging into that middle one a little bit more, do we care about it? Let's say the answer is yes, I do care about this thing. Well, why do you care? Turns out the answer to that question is incredibly important, because we might care about it because of, like you mentioned, money or some kind of reward we might get, or to avoid some sort of punishment that we don't want. That's one reason. We might care about it because by engaging in the activity, we will avoid feeling guilty or ashamed of ourselves, or because we see the value in doing the activity. We may not care that much about the activity itself, but what it leads to is really important to us. Or we might engage in the activity because it's just part of who we are. It's just part of our identity. It would be weird if we didn't do it, because it just wouldn't fit with how we see ourselves. So it turns out that those later ones that I was just mentioning, being motivated, the source of the motivation being because it's part of who we are, that's really powerful. And it's connected to our values and our beliefs. So the key to motivation is, number one, let's get to the point where we believe we're capable of being successful. where we really care about it, and where we see the benefits outweighing the costs. And let's connect that behavior to our values, to how we see ourselves, to the things that truly matter to us at our core. If we do those things, then not only will we be motivated in the moment, but we'll be able to sustain high levels of motivation over the course of time.
Right, right. Now let's go a bit upstream and talk about potential. Why is it that others can see potential and then you also see the potential in yourself, but later on, a lot of this potential fizzles out? But whereas there are so many people who others do not see any potential, they come up very strong, they can handle pressure, they can be resilient, they are self motivated. Why is it that people full of potential do not do as expectedly, and people who have less potential, so called less potential, are able to? And also, is potential continues to be a skill which you can keep on chiseling, and if you don't do it, even if you perform once, the second time you may not be able to, you will just be a flash in the pan.
Yeah, it's so-called potential. That's a great term, because that's kind of how I look at potential. I've tried. It's funny because in my book, it's titled "Begin Again: Utilize the Wisdom of Eastern and Western Ideologies to Achieve Your Full Potential." So, but now I've kind of rethought that, and I'm questioning whether potential is even a real thing, because we talk about it as though it's this fixed ability or condition that people have. You have potential, you only have a little potential, we have a lot of potential. And I don't know that that's true. I think that potential changes every day, maybe every hour, every minute, because, today I might be more tired than I was yesterday, meaning that the best that I can do. So if we define potential as what we are capable of achieving, the best that we can do, well, if I'm tired and I haven't eaten and my muscles are sore, well, then I'm just not capable of performing at a level that I would be able to perform if my muscles weren't sore and I had slept and I had eaten better. So I think potential is something that is a moving target, if it exists at all. And and I'm kind of wrestling with that. I don't know the answer. It's something I really enjoy talking about, because I think that a lot of time is wasted talking about the potential of somebody. And I think that a lot of people are either, like you mentioned, given the benefit of the doubt and a lot of opportunities because somebody believes that they have potential, and other people simply aren't given those opportunities on the belief that they don't have the potential. When I don't know that we can ever know fully what somebody's potential is, because we don't have access to all of the different variables that will affect whether somebody is capable of performing at a high level. Now, we may know that they may not be able to do it today, but whether somebody's capable of learning and growing and developing into somebody who's capable of performing at a high level, I don't know that we have a good way of knowing that. So to me, I think potential, if it's not a complete illusion altogether, it's often a very unuseful way of talking about whether people are capable of performing well or not.
Right. So are peak performers, top performers, they are born, or is it that normal people uh, with a bit of potential, as they can perceive it, they chisel themselves each day, every day, and also at the moment of performing, and that is what makes them top performers? What is your understanding? How do peak performance keep themselves in proper shape to always perform at their best?
Well, to start at the end, I don't know that peak performers do keep themselves into a position where they can always perform their best. It's a very it's interesting. It's a very Buddhist perspective, in the sense that right now we are what we are, and what is happening is what is happening, and it can't happen any other way than what it is. It's just simply this is it. So if we're performing badly, then it doesn't matter. We're, by some other standards, somebody says you're performing badly right now. Well, I'm performing how I'm performing. The only way that I can perform. I can't do any differently than what I am. So that's one perspective on it. The other is an interesting question. Are people born with the abilities, or are they developed? And the answer is both. Quite frankly, the genetics plays a role. The environment in which we are born and raised plays a role. and all of those internal factors play a role too. Some people just have a constitution to deal with more pain or they're calmer, or they tend to be less volatile than other people. And the right combination of all of these variables coming together for people can set conditions for them to grow and develop over time. So it's a combination of both. We're born, I believe, with certain amounts of ability on continuums of functionally infinite number of variables, but those are just continuums. So we can push ourselves past where we are, and we can get worse. I mean, that can happen too, and people don't always talk about that, but that we can regress as well. And how we approach each day and the different levels of effort and attitude and where our attention is focused, that is a critical thing. Again, it's a very Eastern idea. This idea of our entire reality is the result of what we attend to, where our attention is focused. I mean, by definition, nothing has made it into our conscious awareness that we did not attend to. So, so where our attention goes and how we choose to interpret it, that's a big part too. How we craft our realities. So what does make it into our attention? What does it mean to us? Those are things that we can get better at. Those are things that we can learn and that we can develop. And I think that they're critical in terms of people pursuing something and really raising themselves up to a different level.
Absolutely. There is much to learn from you, Brian. Let's learn a bit from your book. You have written Begin Again, and you have another one coming, A Stuntsman Guide to Motivation. What can the audience learn from your books?
Well, the Begin Again, it's funny because that one is a book. It didn't start out as a book. I didn't try to write it as a book. It was just, I would get up in the morning and I would read various texts. I would read from Marcus Aurelius. I would read the Bhagavad Gita. The Upanishads were part of what I read. They're just different texts from different ancient authors, different philosophies. And I just thought, it was just something to get my mind working and to get my thinking going. And I always had a little pad of sticky notes next to me with a pen. And whenever an idea came to me, I wrote it down on the sticky note. And I eventually collected, I don't know if I have the bag here. I think I do. I have a big bag of sticky notes, and all of these have an idea on them. And I just, when I would come to the computer and I would feel like exploring the ideas a little bit further, I'd pull out one of the sticky notes and I would do that. And I did that 183 times. And now we have Begin Again, utilize the wisdom of Eastern and Western ideologies to achieve your full potential. It's just a compilation of essays on various topics that just were things that I wanted to explore a little bit further. Here's what the challenges that a lot of people face. Here's some information about it and some ways of looking at it. And today, if you go out in the world and you put some of these things into practice, you're probably going to see some benefits. That's the whole structure and purpose of Begin Again. The next book, The Stuntman's Guide to Motivation. Again, motivation is essential. It's a critical factor that so many people, in fact, leaders that I've spoken to around the globe, have consistently told me it's the biggest problem that they face as leaders. How do I get my people motivated? How do I get them to do what they need to do without me having to poke them and prod them and offer them things? How do I get them to just do what they're supposed to do because it's the right thing to do? So I decided to write the book, and it's just an extended version of what I told you before about motivation, about levels of motivation, where they come from, as well as the sources of motivation, with additional information about basic psychological needs. And I tell all of that through stories that I've lived myself through my 30-year stunt career. I illustrate those topics. And I do the same thing in the coaching that I provide around motivation as well. When people purchase my motivation program, I present the material and I illustrate it with the stunt stories, and then I help them apply it in the same way to their own situations, their own lives, and see the benefit from it there. So those are the books.
Wonderful. As I said, there is so much to learn from you, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to learn from you, about you, be your client. So what's the best way for them to do so?
Well, at the moment, my website is www.brianhiteglobal, BrianHiteGlobal, BrianHiteGlobal.com. it's the website's in the process of being revised and updated. So you won't be able to, if you go there right now, the second, depending on when you're listening to this, we're recording this on October 1st. Right now, you can't purchase the coaching programs or classes on the website. That will change in another week or two because the website should be finished by then. That's one place. You can also follow me on Facebook. You can look me up. It's Brian Hite. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Brian_Hite 23. And that's Instagram. And you can follow me on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/Brian C. Hite. So that's where you can follow me and stay up to date on the different programs. If you send me an email, which that's available on the website, and you let me know that you listen to this podcast, I'll give you 50% off whatever coaching programs or anything else that you want to buy. Just tell me that you listen to the podcast, and I'll send you a coupon code, and you can plug that in and get half off of whatever these programs are that might interest you.
Thank you for that, Brian. And with this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me again. I really enjoyed it.